So does anyone know who Michael Phelps is? I think everybody does, right? He is the most decorated Olympian ever. I think he's won the most medals of anybody of all time in the Olympics. And he's, what sport does he do? He swims, that's right. He's won 28 Olympic medals over the course of 4 different Olympics. He holds the record for the most Olympic gold medals at 23, the most Olympic gold medals in individual events at 13, and Olympic medals in individual events at 16. And the last Olympics that just happened, he was not swimming, but he is so good at what he does, right, that they hired him to talk because they figure you might watch it if you know somebody who's talking and doing the commentating, and that's exactly what he did. Last week I made the joke that they should do this in a couple years when they have the Olympics again. They should add another lane to the Olympics. Like if you're swimming, you add a 9th lane or whatever, and a track, 9th lane, and then they just call a random person up on the phone and say, hey, average Joe, it's your turn to jump in the pool with these guys and swim with them, up and back. And it just will show how superhuman these athletes are. I mean, right? This random person wouldn't even get halfway and the race would be over. These guys are so much better, so great at what they do. And Michael Phelps was absolutely no different. I remember hearing one time about his training regimen, what he did. He would eat, 10,000 calories a day. That was what was reported. So on average, a random average person eats about 2,000 calories a day. So he's eating 5 times the amount of an average person. Does anyone like breakfast? You have breakfast? I had breakfast for dinner last night. I did. I like breakfast a lot. I usually have a bowl of cereal. Shout out your favorite breakfast food. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, there you go. All right. How about Michael Phelps's breakfast? 3 fried egg sandwiches with cheese, tomatoes, lettuce, fried onions, and mayonnaise. 3 chocolate chip pancakes, a 5-egg omelet, 3 sugar-coated slices of French toast, a bowl of grits, and 2 cups of coffee for breakfast. That's right. Then he would say that on his way to the pool to train, if he felt like he needed to eat anything else, he would just eat whatever else he could get his hands on. Then for lunch, there's 2 more meals in the day here. For lunch, he would have a pound of pasta, 2 large ham and cheese sandwiches on white bread smothered with mayonnaise, and another set of energy drinks. Then, for dinner, he would have another pound of pasta, which that's an entire box of pasta, that you know how much that makes, with carbonara sauce, a large pizza, and more energy drinks. So this list would somewhere get you in between about 10,000 calories, which again, the average is 2,000. So he's eating 5 times the amount of energy, of food, as the regular everyday person would. Phelps is quoted as saying he was supposed to eat between 8 to 10,000 calories a day. He just sort of crammed whatever he could into his body. It's pretty much whatever I feel like eating, I'm going to eat. And the reason why he could do that is because he trained 6 hours a day for 365 days a year to burn off all those calories. His body fat was 8%, He burned 1,000 calories an hour, all so that he could be the best swimmer in history, win the most gold medals in the history of the Olympics. So yes, Michael Phelps had an incredible God-given ability. His body was perfect and all of this stuff, but he trained so incredibly hard. He worked so much harder. In fact, you could say that maybe he worked 5 times as hard as the average person as he's burning all of those calories. He agonized, and that's the key word this morning, he agonized about winning. He fought to train his body to compete at the highest level. And the Apostle Paul, in our letter that we're studying, Colossians, he wrote this letter to a group of Greek Christians in the city of Colossae, and he tells them this. He says, I want you to know how much I have agonized for you. This Greek word that Paul uses here is in reference to the Greek Olympic Games. And so basically what Paul is saying, he's in Michael Phelps language, is he's like, I am working so hard. I am training so hard. I am fighting so hard. I'm fighting 5 times harder than anybody else, not to win a medal, not to be the best swimmer in the world, but I fight so hard, I train so hard, I agonize so much for you. For you. And how many of you know that people are worth fighting for? Right? People are worth fighting for. I know that you know this because you all do this. You do this all the time. You fight for people. Like you're that single mom that works 2 jobs because you're going to fight to provide the best life for yourself and for your kids as you possibly can. And you are fighting, you are struggling, you are working so hard to do this. And you're doing a great job. You're not letting them down, right? You're working at it. You're striving for it. You're exhausted because you're working and you're working and you're working and you're caring and you're loving and you're doing all of this stuff. But it's so worth it, isn't it? Because people are worth fighting for. You're making a difference in the life of someone that you really care about in your family. You're changing their future potentially by the work that you're putting into them. Or you're the parent of the son or daughter who seems to be kind of going astray. They're not really where you want them to be or wish they were be in life. And you are just hoping and worrying and having anxiety about, man, I just hope that they make better choices. I hope that they choose to follow the Lord. You're agonizing for them. Like you wish life was different. It's hard to sleep at night because you're just running scenarios through your mind. Like how could this be different? What could I say? What could I do that would make an impact on their life, that might change the course of their life because I love them so much? I'm gonna do everything I can do to fight for them, no matter what that means. I'm going to do everything I can do. You're fighting for that son or that daughter. Or you're that husband or that wife, that boyfriend or that girlfriend, and you care deeply about each other. You know that you're united, you're one, and yet there are some days when you feel so far apart. And you wonder, how in the world did you ever get here? You're wondering, is everything going to go back to the way that it was? We used to be so close. We used to be on the same page, and now it just seems like things are so different. And you're fighting in your heart and in your mind and your will and your emotions. You're agonizing, you're struggling, you're worrying about, how can I fix this? How can I do something that would make this better? How can I do something to make this right? I'll do anything for you. We'll fight this together and nothing's going to get in our way. See, Paul says this. He wanted them to know how much he has agonized for you. And for the church at Laodicea, that was a nearby town. And for many other believers who have never met me personally. He was agonizing for the church, for these believers, for these people. And you know what? There was a time when this church that you're sitting in right now, Connect Us Church, or what you're watching online right now, welcome. It was just a thought in my mind, in my heart, and I was able to translate that thought onto a piece of paper. And I got together with some people, and I would just share about what I believe God was telling me, where he was leading me, and we got to talk about it. And one of the people, one of my friends that I talked to about it, you might know them. They're Jordan and Marcus. They're on our leadership team now. But they were over at our house, and I pulled out this little piece of paper, and I said, I want to tell you something. And I shared with them the vision for this church. This was a number of years ago. And we talked about it. And we called it, after that meeting, Paper Church. because it was church on a piece of paper. And that's literally all it was. There wasn't anything else. There was no people. There was no money. There was no building. There was no view. There was nothing. It was just a vision on a piece of paper. And one of the most awesome experiences that I've had since like those days has been to see that that is not true anymore. Like there are so many people, so many of you that have grasped the hold of that vision, have caught this purpose and this mission. And it's not just paper church anymore. It's you and you and you and you, and you agonize over it. You struggle over it. You fight for it. You work so hard for it. And it used to be just an idea on a piece of paper that I wrote. And now it's like something that you're fighting for. And that is incredible to see that. And it's incredibly humbling to be a part of. Because you agonize over people on your serving team. You want more people to be involved. You want more people to do well, to engage in the mission. Or you're praying for people to come and to join what God is doing here. And you're praying for them. You're thinking about it. You're planning. You're putting all these things into place to make it happen. And you really care about it. And so when you have a vision, a mission kind of like put on a piece of paper, it's kind of like ideal, right? And then you have like reality, right? You have, okay, this is what it actually is. And sometimes those two aren't exactly aligned. For, whatever reason. You're always striving, you're always working, you're always trying to get to where you want to go. And some of the most humbling and powerful conversations I have had with people is with friends, with some of you all that have been fighting for the vision, fighting for the mission. Like, I thought we said we wanted to do this, and right now I'm feeling like this, and how can we get there? How can we do this? How can we reach these people? How can we? And you know what? I love those conversations are incredible to see you agonizing, striving for, fighting for, working hard for this vision, this mission that God has given us. It used to be just a piece of paper. So keep doing it. The other really interesting thing that this passage kind of brings to light is Paul had a unique responsibility, a unique place with these believers, these churches. And for whatever reason, God has chosen me and my wife Alicia to be the pastor and the church planting family that planted Connect Us Church. And I want to tell you today that we have agonized for you. We have agonized for this whole place. We put in so much energy and effort and struggle. And I told you a couple weeks ago that growing up in high school, I was a football, basketball, and baseball player. And my life was training for those things. Like, that's what I did. I competed, and I practiced, and I trained, and that's what I did. And it seemed to pay off. I was all-state football player for 3 years in a row, which I was probably, the top 6 wide receiver in my little state of Delaware for 3 years. I was all-state player in baseball for a couple years. I was an all-conference basketball player. Like, I was good, at it. And I put in the effort and the work into it. But then I told you again a couple weeks ago how there was a moment in college where like God just like sucked that energy, that power, that something out of me and put it into you. Put it into ministry, put it into church. I can't explain it, but I think it's an illustration of what Paul is getting at here with this word agonized. There's just this thing that it's hard to put your finger on it. It's an Olympic athlete that trains and struggles and fights. And he's saying that I'm doing that for you. So just think about like the conversations you're going to have on the way home after church today. Like, oh, that sermon was cool. I love that worship song. I'm so glad that they sung it. Did you see that there was a donut with a gummy worm on it? Like all of the conversations that you have about church. Now think about what Alicia and I talk about. I mean, whatever that is, right? It's like multiply that by 5. Right? It's like we're talking about everything and all of you. And yes, we talk about you. We talk about you Thursday afternoon, 1:00. I might be agonizing for you about your situation that you're facing. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything like that. I'm just telling you that that is reality. And it's a special gift, and I believe an opportunity and responsibility that I know God has given to me. And this agonizing for you, it's a real thing. It's a very real thing. But in Paul's case, as you can see from this verse, Colossians 2:1, he was agonizing for many believers who he's never met personally. He's never met these people, and he is pouring out everything in his heart and in his mind for them. And on one hand, it's like, why would you do that? But on the other hand, I think we do this all of the time. Just think about the people that you're agonizing over. Maybe they're on the other part of the world right now. You've seen bits and pieces of their story. You've seen the news. You've read the articles. You've seen the post on social media. Maybe you're thinking about people in Afghanistan. You don't know who they are. You've never met them before, most likely. But yet there's a part of you that is hurting for them. There's a part of you that agonizes for them, wishes that you could do something, wishes that you could put some little effort or some sort of something into them. And I think, again, that is a great example and application of what Paul is doing for these believers in Colossae, in the city of Colossae. So, I know that you fight for people. You fight for people in your life. You fight for people in your family. You fight for people you've never met before on the other side of the world. You fight for people because I know that people are worth fighting for. You work so hard. You plan so hard. You confront situations. You love. You pray. You serve. You give. You forgive. You do all of these things because you know that people are worth fighting for. People are worth fighting for. And so what are you fighting for? Paul tells us the first thing that he is fighting for them is he's fighting for them to be encouraged. None of us want to walk around and be around people all day long that are defeated, depressed, and worn out. We need to fight for people to be lifted up, to be strengthened, to be encouraged, to be built up. And I think many of us do that all the time. Whatever we're doing at work or something, we're doing something for somebody, we're serving them in some way, we're giving them something that hopefully adds value to their life. We hope that it actually does that they appreciate it, that we do it well. And we want people to know that when they're at the lowest point in their life, that we are with them and that we're here to encourage you and walk with you through whatever it is that you're facing. The first thing that Paul is fighting for, and I think that we fight for people like this all the time, is that we want them to be encouraged. But the other way that Paul then says that he is fighting for people is he wants them to be knit together by strong ties of love. He's fighting for unity. He's fighting for being together, praying for love, striving for relationship, and hoping that no matter what life throws their way, that they can make it through together. Because when life throws us some hard stuff, and isn't this true? You've heard this saying before, is we oftentimes hurt the people the most that we love the most, right? We oftentimes hurt the people the most whom we love the most. And I think the reason why we do that is because we know that they love us. We know that we've built up years and years and years, 20, 30, 40 years of trust with them, of love with them, of knowing that no matter what comes into our life, we're going to make it through because we have. And so there is a little bit of a freedom to maybe go off a little more than we usually would, or say something that we would necessarily say, or let them down in certain ways, because we know, you know, that you've been through this before, and it's been fine, so we could just keep doing it. We just keep going because, it's all good. And like deep down, right, you would never do that to somebody you just met. Because if you said that to them, if you did that to them, they would never return your phone call. You know that. And that's why we oftentimes hurt the ones we love the most, because we just know that they're just going to be with us. We know we'll make it through together. But I don't think you have to live your life that way. I don't think you should live your life that way. I think that you can be together, knit together with strong ties of love, so that when something comes into your life, when something shows up outside of you, you don't have to turn on each other. You don't have to fight each other. You don't have to strive and struggle against each other. When something outside of you comes up in your situation, you turn with that person in your life and you fight that thing together. You don't fight each other. You fight that thing together. When depression shows up on your doorstep, you fight that thing together. When you have anxiety creeping up in your world, you fight it together. When your boss tells you something at work that changes your life, you fight it together. Somebody say together. There we go. We fight it together. When we have a schedule conflict show up in our world, we fight it together. When the government makes decisions that impact our life, we fight it together. Why are we fighting each other? Let's be united in love and fight these things together. We're going to fight these things. We're going to fight them together. We're going to fight to fight them together because we want to fight each other, but we got to fight together. So when I first started to be a pastor, I was an associate pastor. One of my main roles was to lead our youth group. And if you would have known me back then, I don't even know if I would have taken that job back then, but it was like, hey, we don't have a youth group. Can you start one? It's like, here's one 7th grader. Oh, great. Well, this is going to be fun. And that's what it was. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for you, right? Somebody, right? And so here we are. We've got like a handful of 7th and 8th graders, and I think we were together for about a year. And then the next year, they're, 8th and 9th graders. And by this time, they've gotten to know each other well. They've spent time together. They've done all that stuff. And guess what? Something happened where one of the girls was mad at one of the guys, or one of the guys was mad at one of the girls, or something, It never happens in daily life, but just imagine, right? They're angry at each other. They want to quit. The girl wants to leave. I think she just wanted to leave right then and there and just be like, this isn't worth it. I'm done. I'm over this. Just forget it. And we were at an event after church one day. We had set up tables in our youth group. We brought pizza because you always bring pizza to youth group. And we're sitting down, and I'm seeing this play out. I'm seeing this happen. They're just fighting each other. And I sat them down at the table, and I'm like, you've got to figure this out. You've got to work this out. You've got to learn how to fight well. You can't live your life this is not okay. You've got to forgive. You've got to work it out. You've got to figure this out together. And I think they looked at me, and this one girl in particular, I think she looked at me and was like, why are you doing this? like why do you even care? And you know what? That's a great question. Because I think many people maybe wouldn't, but I just believe that this girl and this person, these people, they mattered. They mattered to me. They mattered to God. They mattered to our youth group. And I wasn't going to let that just go away. I was gonna make them figure it out. I was gonna make them fight it out. I was gonna make them learn how to fight together well, because you have to learn that. You have to figure that out in your life. And it's one of the realities that we face as a church, any church, but specifically our church, Connect Us Church, because we value developing authentic relationships, okay? So if you're authentic with somebody, then guess what? You're going to hurt them one of these days, right? It's just going to happen. You're going to say something. You're going to just do something. And it's going to just come out because guess what? We're real people. We're not hiding anything. We're not putting on a show. This is just who we are. And so if that's true, and we do value developing authentic relationships, then the other thing goes exactly with it is we value having fun because fun authenticates forgiveness, the key component of lasting relationships. And so we have to work at it, we have to strive at it, we have to agonize over it, that we are going to learn how to forgive one another well. We're going to have to learn how to fight well together and not fight each other. It's all part of the process. We have to learn how to forgive. We have to learn how to fight well. And that's exactly what Paul is praying for here. He's like, I pray that they would be knit together by strong ties of love so that nothing would come in between. And so you might be tempted to fight somebody. You might be tempted to confront somebody, or you might be tempted to even fight me. And guess what? I invite you to do that. I'm serious. If you are disappointed about something, you're questioning something, you're wondering about something, you wish something was different, let me know. Because we are in this together. We're going to fight that thing together. We're not going to let that issue get between us. We're going to turn together and fight it together. And so if you do bring something like that to me, then I want to tell you exactly how I hope I would respond. In the moment, it's a little different, but I want to tell you how I hope I would respond. I want to listen to you. I want to do my best to address the situation. And then I want to tell you and remind you over and over again that we're going to be united together to fight this thing together. How's that sound? All right. So then the third thing that Paul wanted to fight for people about, right? He wanted to fight for them to be encouraged. He wanted to fight for them to be knit together with strong ties of love. And he wanted to fight for them to have complete confidence that they understand God's mysterious plan. Which, if you're not sure what God's mysterious plan is, it's Christ himself. And in him lie all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. So Paul wants them to know that no matter what other people say, no matter what books you read, no matter what podcasts you hear, that Jesus is enough. You hear that? You're going to hear that phrase over and over again because that's what we're talking about. Jesus is enough. And you can have confidence, complete confidence, that you have a right relationship with God because of what Jesus has done for you. And the question is that do you understand that, right? That's what Paul is praying for. Do you understand that? And this is something that I agonize for you about. I do. And I agonize for it even more when I get statistics sent to me that show that maybe pastors or churches aren't doing a good job at giving people complete confidence that they understand God's mysterious plan, which is Christ himself. And so I'm going to share with you some statistics. They interviewed or studied or sent a survey out to 3,100 Americans, the ages 18 to 55, last year. And they asked them a series of questions. And one of the questions was this. He says, more than blank percentage of born-again Christians, so people that identify themselves as Christians, as evangelical Christians, as this God thing is personal to me, Jesus is personal to me, that's the box they're checking. For whatever reason, they're checking it. The percentage of born-again Christians in America between the ages of 18 to 39 that believe Buddha, Muhammad, and Jesus are all valid paths to salvation. Okay? What do you think that percentage is? All of these are valid just like Jesus. The answer is 60% of Christians, of born-again Christians, ages 18 to 39, believe that Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus are all the same. So Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one gets to the Father but by me. Not Buddha, not Muhammad. Jesus said, but by me. Another thing that they found was that blank percentage say that they either believe that Jesus sinned just like other people when he lived on earth or aren't sure. So Jesus definitely sinned because he was just like a regular person like we all are, or I'm not quite sure if he sinned or not. The answer to that question would be 30% of born-again believers would say that Jesus sinned just like anybody else, or they're not sure. Which that's a real problem, because if Jesus sinned, then he would have to pay for his own sin, and he's got no chance of helping you with yours. And if you're like me, I need his help, right? So Jesus is perfect. We are not, right? That's how it works. And when Jesus died, he took my imperfection. And when I trusted and believed in him after his, resurrected and conquered sin and death and everything, then he gave me his perfection. That's the gospel. And if you can't have that, then you don't have much. Some other numbers that I thought were interesting, those were the two huge ones, but some other numbers was interesting that there's a basic biblical worldview that they were asking people about, God's attributes, the accuracy of the Bible, salvation, and Jesus being sinless. And in 2010, like 47% of their responders agreed with this particular thing. 10 years later, the number dropped to 25%. So almost a 50% decrease in the people that agreed with these kind of core truths over the last 10 years. Another thing that they looked at was, okay, that's Christians. Christians have stopped believing, the stuff, half of them, right? But if you just ask like a random person on the street, whoever you come in contact with, and they ask them about these same questions, 13% would agree with it. That dropped in half to 6%. And then if you add a few other pieces to this, what they called an expanded worldview, that declined from 9% to just over 3%. So if you just imagine, right, the millions of people in this country, based on the study of 3,000 Americans, that 3% of those millions of people have a biblical worldview, of course, the way that this company defined it, of course, organization defined it, but still, 3% of people. So I think that we have a great mission to continue to press into, to agonize over, to fight for, that we really do want people to know completely and understand God's mysterious plan, which is Jesus. And I think we have a good chance of helping in that way. And Paul reminds them that it's Jesus lies all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And he's telling them this because he doesn't want anyone to be deceived with well-crafted arguments. And if you come back next week, we're going to dig a lot more into what these well-crafted arguments could be and are. Because I'm sure there are a lot of great arguments for why Jesus should have been or could have been or must have been a sinner of some kind. I'm sure there's some great arguments for that. Or there's some great arguments to say why, Buddha and Muhammad and Jesus are all good. They're all ways to the same place and we're all good. I'm sure there are some really well-crafted arguments. There's some really attractive YouTube videos. There's some really good books where some really smart people wrote some really good things that you could read, that you could understand, that you might also believe. And so Paul wants them to know, you don't have to worry about all this stuff. You don't have to go seeking some other opportunity. You don't have to go somewhere and experience something different. You don't have to go find a secret book or dig something up out of the ground in Middle East. He's saying in Jesus lies all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Everything that you're looking for is found in Jesus. And so Paul says, though I am far away from you, my heart is with you. And I rejoice that you are living as you should, that your faith in Christ is strong. So Paul never met these people that he was writing to. And he was about to and is about to get into it with them, right? To defeat some of these lies that they may have been believing or that were coming against them. These well-crafted arguments that were being put into their place and into their church, into their culture. And Paul's saying, I'm with you in this. My heart is with you. I might not physically be there, but I am with you. And I know that you are with people in your life. You agonize over people in your life. You care deeply about people in your life. And these are some things that you can agonize for them for. You can agonize that they would be encouraged. You want to work, you want to strive, you want to struggle, you want to pray, you want to do everything that you can do that they would be encouraged, that they would not be left down low, depressed, and left out, thinking there's no hope. But you can encourage them. You can do everything that you can do to make that happen. You can agonize for them to be united with strong ties of love. That when situations arise, you don't have to fight each other. They don't have to fight each other. They can fight that thing together. They can be united together and fight it together and allow even that thing that's dividing them, that's separating them, to be the thing that draws them closer together. And Paul was agonizing for a church, and I hope that you can be too, agonizing for a church where people know completely and are assured that Jesus is enough, that their faith in Jesus is what it takes. And when we do this, then we'll be able to stand against anything that gets thrown our way. We will have a strong faith, and that strong faith in Christ will make its way out of our hearts and out of our minds into the way that we live, and we'll be able to live the way that we should. So let us close in a word of prayer, and the band, the worship team, will come up forward here. God, we just come before you now in a word of prayer and realize that we need your help. We need your presence to be with us. Lord, it is so easy to confess, to fight each other, to fight those that are closest to us, to be against or strive against those that we love so dearly. And Lord, forgive us when we feel like we can do that because we kind of just know that they'll be okay with us. Lord, I hope and I pray that we would do a better job of fighting together. Lord, there are so many things in this world to fight over, to struggle against. And I just pray that you would be with us to help us fight together. Help us to be united with strong ties of love, to encourage one another. And Lord, may we all, under the sound of my voice today and in the months and years to come, as people listen and watch this sermon over and over again, that they would know completely, assuredly, the mysterious plan of God that is Christ himself. And we don't have to look anywhere else because in him all wisdom and knowledge live. So help us to continue to press into him, and may our life be transformed as a result of it. We thank you and we praise you for this in Jesus' name.